Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. I had just turned 18 when my grandmother Polly died abruptly in May. I had also recently graduated from high school in June of 2015 and had only had a few months off before starting at the spa school. I was supposed to finish advanced aesthetics within 6 months of starting. Saturday, January 7, 2016. My boyfriend, now husband, asked if I could pick him up on the way home because I was the first class of the day. He was visiting his mother. It was around 20 degrees outside and lightly raining. I left school about 8:30 p.m. and I tried to GPS to get driving instructions from my school to my boyfriend's parents' house before I left. But my GPS just said, the address does not exist. We decided that because I knew the bulk of the way there and had Bluetooth hands-free calling, I'd travel as far as I knew and he'd talk me the rest of the way. Something we've done numerous times. I had planned to straighten my hair, wear an infinity scarf, and wear an old North Face that day. My emergency brake was quite twitchy, and my older silver hatchback Hyundai Elantra GT. I was about 2 miles from the Alum Creek exit and had taken the wrong route, so at the stoplight, I called my boyfriend on Bluetooth. I was merging onto the freeway at around 68 miles per hour when I began to hydroplane. My emergency brake mysteriously pushed up while I was hydroplaning. I lost control of my car and found myself doing donuts. I just started shouting, screaming for aid to my partner on the phone. With each donut, I could see the lights of the cars. I felt helpless. I just continued spinning till I came to a halt. I came to a halt. I glanced out my driver's window and noticed I was driving diagonally across the freeway's fast lane and middle lane. Big lights were flashing at me in the fast lane. If you're ever in a car accident, just let your body go and don't tense up, I heard or read. I slumped back in my seat, closed my eyes, let go of my body, and begged God not to let me die. It truly felt like a reflex. I can't explain how my body knew what to do. I can still remember how my body jerked around the car like a rag doll. I can still hear metal crackling, glass shattering, horns blasting, people cursing at me, yelling, telling me I deserve to die, ordering me to move my car. I'm an idiot. You can still move your car. This is all your fault. But I see nothing but darkness. It seemed as though I was hovering over myself, but only seeing darkness. Finally, everything came to a halt, and my car ceased to move. I gradually opened my eyes. Glasses everywhere around me, and I can hear cars driving over the parts of my automobile. I was stuck on the driver's side of the hood, approximately 2 to 4 inches from the driver's door. My door had been forced inwards towards me. The front of my automobile had been pulled in, crushing against my knees, and I had now recognized how much blood was pouring down my face from my head. I could feel the blood clinging to my hair, coating my face and pooling in my scarf. I wanted to yank the scarf from my neck, but I was too afraid to move. My North Face has a hole in the right wrist where the airbag fluid had burned through and branded my wrist. I need to get out of here right now. I felt confined because I couldn't open my door and my window was broken. A woman was trying to maneuver past my car and I could see she was on the phone, so I threw my bloody head out the window and started screaming, "Please assist me! Please assist me! Please assist me!" She gave me a direct stare and then continued driving. That's when it hit me. I slumped back in my seat and told myself, okay, you're going to die here. You'll perish alone. Your parents won't know. And I'm not even sure if my boyfriend heard what just transpired. I had lost trust in humanity. That's when I spotted a small pea on my right wrist, where the airbag fluid had burned me. My grandmother was present and she was watching over me. I discovered I wasn't the only one. I just sat there thinking in my brain how this is it. But then a man dashed over to my car. I began pleading with him. He simply keeps trying to calm me down, grabbing my hand and instructing me to squeeze, asking me where I went to school, what I went to school for, anything to keep me sane. He starts staring at my skull and exclaiming, "Oh no," and panic seeps in. Another man tries to open the door with a crowbar. Two other men maneuver their vehicle sideways, preventing motorists from passing past the wreckage of my first car. They got out of their truck, opened my passenger door, dragged me out, brought me to the side of the motorway, and sat me down. I'm shivering, but I can't stop. 3 additional males emerged from their automobiles, took a picture of me, rushed away, and returned to their cars. So more people came up and formed a barrier around me, preventing anyone else from approaching. When the ambulance arrives, they inquire as to what is causing the pain. I told them about my knees, the left top side of my head, the cut on my seatbelt, and the top of my neck. They start questioning me about everything. What vehicle do I drive? Where do I reside? Where do I attend school? What is your given name? On and on. I keep answering over and over again. Before I knew it, I was lying flat on the gurney, wearing a neck brace and being pushed into an ambulance. At this point, all I can do is beg for my mother or have someone call her. They told me that because I was 18 years old, I was considered an adult and they needed to treat my wounds before calling someone for me. They drove me to the hospital, and as they were driving me in, the EMTs were conversing with the emergency room nurses, and I overheard them say that I had been T-boned by a semi-truck. This is the first time I understand the lights I saw approaching me weren't just a car, but a full semi-truck. I even asked for clarification. Was that a car or a truck? "You were T-boned by a semi-truck," the nurse was saying. "No sweets." When I'd ask whether they'd call my mother, they'd say no, because we need to address your wounds first. They take me to an emergency room, where there's a naked old man on one table and a room full of interns and younger doctors. I feel like I'm going to fall off the metal table they've gotten me on. They begin removing my clothes. The man next to me was staring away, and I felt like I may as well have been a dead body because they'd barely speak to me while shutting everything off. One of the physicians approaches me and informs me that he needs to begin inserting about 3 staples and 13 stitches in my skull to repair the wound. I knew he had to do his job at the time, but I was tired of being alone and needed someone I knew. I told him he should at the very least talk with me so I know what it's like before you touch my head and call my mother. He explained what to expect and began working on my mind. I began to cry and he covered my eyes with a paper towel, perhaps to avoid seeing me cry. The only nurse who actually spoke to me removed the towel from my eyes, wrapped a blanket around my trembling body, and said, "I'll call your mom for you." They had the phone on speaker, and all I could hear was my mother's voice telling me that my boyfriend had contacted her when he heard my screams and that they were all waiting in the trauma center. I eventually lost it as relief set in. I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They finally finished my sutures and admitted me to the trauma center. It's around 12 a.m. and I'm waiting to be able to go in for a slew of scans and testing. I had to lie entirely flat until I had a panic episode from lying flat, at which point they raised me 15 degrees. I wasn't allowed to eat or drink anything, but they did give me water to suck from cold sponges. They finally let my parents back into the room. They walk in, shocked, my face still a bloodied mess. Looking at me in surprise, he assures me that everything will be okay and that we will work it out. My mother began wiping the dry blood from my face. We spent some time together before my parents allowed my lover to return to visit me. He described how he was sitting in his living room, giving me directions when he began hearing my screams and heavy hammering. He claimed to have heard me scream and a series of crashes. When the phone went dead, he quickly contacted my parents to inform them that he believed I'd been in an accident, and then ran shrieking to his parents that I'd been in an accident and that they needed to leave. His entire family piled into the car and drove to the motorway exit where he knew I was. Because of the collision, the freeway was backed up for about 5 to 7 miles, so they exited and began scoping from the walled streets above the freeways. When they eventually saw my car, he went down to ask a cop where they had taken me, and they told him Grant Hospital. I was so grateful that he immediately called my parents and rushed to the hospital to be with me. They send me back for testing, and once there, they tell me I have to spend the night in the trauma center and will get the results sometime tomorrow. In my trauma room, I had a small chair next to my bed, and my partner wanted to stay with me. He attempted to sleep on the chair, but because he's quite tall, he slept on the floor next to my bed. The next morning, I was eventually moved out of the trauma center so that my family could all be in my room at the same time. When the physicians arrived to give me my test results, they informed me that I had glass in my hand, 13 stitches, and 3 staples in my head, whiplash, a concussion, nerve damage in my knees and left shoulder, and I had broken my C2, which nearly paralyzed me. They're telling me that the only reason they're not performing surgery is because of my age, and that they're hoping it would heal on its own. The nurses came in to try to wash some of the hardened blood out of my hair, but it didn't work out so well that we had to put my hair up in a bun. With the results of my tests in hand, I was able to sit up, but was placed in a neck brace. My mother and boyfriend alternated staying the night with me. I was there for 3 nights. Every night, I had to fight with the nurses to receive my pain medication. I woke up in the middle of the night in excruciating pain one night, and we repeatedly punched the help button. My mother stepped out and found the nurse seated exactly under the light, beeping from our pressed button. She told her that I needed my medicine right away and that I shouldn't have to wait so long while in pain. I was finally freed from the hospital, but under tight terms. I couldn't lift anything heavier than 5 pounds. I couldn't drive, and I couldn't take the neck brace off when showering or sleeping. We had to go to the doctor every few weeks to see how my neck and head were doing. Every night, I battled to sleep. I couldn't even turn over by myself. My mother would sleep with me and move me around at night if I needed it. I had to take a vacation from school and lost my job since I was in the hospital for several days. I started getting PTSD whenever we were in a car, especially on the motorway. After 7 weeks, I finally had my stitches and staples removed. Such a terrible pain in my brain, and they were gone after an hour. It was a huge step. However, it was added to the other painful wounds. 14 long weeks later, we went to see my doctor again. He stated that we could only proceed as far as the neck brace. He told me I could get my brace off today, but I should take it easy because it would take a year or more for my neck to heal entirely. So he pulls my brace off, and my neck feels like mashed potatoes, as if I didn't have a neck at all. After that, they basically wiped their hands of me. There were no more instructions given to me. It was my first night sleeping without a neck brace. I couldn't sleep because of my dreams and stiffness. I knew I needed to deal with the mental aspect of this, so I began seeing a therapist to help me get through it. We addressed the anxiety and PTSD. I returned to school and graduated in October. I'm now just suffering PTSD attacks when the car is jerked, and I can tell when it's occurring before I go tunnel vision. My anxiousness is still being worked on, but it has come a long way. This taught me that if you see someone in need, you should help them. Be present in the moment rather than wishing it away because you never know what can happen. Be grateful for what and who you have in your corner. They will always be there for you when you are at your lowest. The last thing I discovered was that, while I was physically alone, that night, I knew someone or numerous guardian angels were with me and protecting me. I was far from alone. I'm grateful to my boyfriend for calling my mom as soon as he heard something was wrong, to my parents for leaving their house in the middle of the night and driving up and down the freeways near where the crash occurred to find me, to the people who came to see me in the hospital and helped me afterwards, to the nurse who called my mom, to the people who stopped and helped me out of my car, to my guardians, and to me. I'm grateful that I went through so much to show myself how awesome I can be. Now, I attempt to make this a day of joy. It can be difficult at times, especially on non-anniversary days, but with each year comes growth. Individuals believe that God sends his most difficult fights to his strongest people, and for that, I am grateful.